Tears of every Clevelander dried up from June 30th to December 29th, 1991. Then all the dams broke on the wrong side of town and we all went, gee whiz. Now there's an epidemic of pissing and doodling. I put my beaker of Our Lady of Akron's fragrant water on the chrome metal soap dish jutting from my kitchen sink. Washing the dishes, I turn the spigot on full blast and stick a spoon under it. Adjust the tap so the water will splash off your plates and get you wet a little at a time. Your sink comes up to your crotch. Your underwear gets wet through your pants. Selective immersion like the log ride at Cedar Point. And the pipes in the wall gargle, Lysol, Listerine, Lysol, Listerine, Lysol, Listerine. That was from Ray Magazine, so thanks to James and Valerie for putting that out. Okay, this is another one. This is from the first Ray Magazine. This is the king size edition. Okay, we're waiting.
He's trying to draw attention to himself.
Let's go. Robert, are you going to sit there and be quiet?
No. I'm quiet. I love it, man. You got it, Bertie?
Is that all right, Linda?
Well, just don't let him.
You can't get up because of the camera.
Stay.
I love
We don't want to hear the deal. We want to listen to the deal. Let's listen to it. He's better than Hey, shut up. He's cool. Okay, this happened today. I was knocking on people's doors because there's this vacant house painted fluorescent lime green and all the windows are busted out and guys have been stealing all the fixtures and the copper piping and anything else worth $5 and, well, you know, someone could start a fire or drag a child in there. That's what the neighbors worry about. So I'm knocking on their doors, trying to get them together to board the windows before something really does happen. You get the idea. Anyway, I'm knocking on them and Linda answers her door. I pegged Linda as a transvestite the first time I saw her on the street, because no 50-year-old woman would wear high heels and 6 inches of water and snow to drag her shopping cart 15 blocks to Pick and Pay to buy 5 25-pound bags of dog food for her 9 huge Dobermans. One time she asked me to help her fill out a form. I checked female head of household without even asking, but then she wanted me to check black instead of white, Hispanic, or other. That's how I know this white guy, Linda, thinks he's black. I mean, she really believes it. Anyway, this Linda comes to the door. No, wait, let me knock again. I forgot to tell you that Linda's a nurse now. I know this because one day she comes up to me wearing a nurse's uniform and high heels, and instead of a shopping cart, she's pushing a wheelchair decorated with a little old lady. And she says, "Don't invite me to any more meetings, I'm a nurse now." I figure it's some home care deal she worked out to supplement her disability check. So she opens the door. I go in the house and the old lady is hitched to this ratty blue couch with a portable toilet in front of her like a footrest. And all 9 Dobermans are barking, and Linda goes out to the kitchen to tell them to shut up. So I sit down across from the old lady, and I'm watching her searching for something everywhere with little frantic movements of her arms. Under the couch, on the end table, under the cushion, down her dress. She doesn't seem to know I'm there. And just the portable toilet between us and the sound of the dogs barking from the kitchen and 2 of them fighting and Linda yelling, and still the old lady is searching while every once in a while a dog gets loose and runs out to the living room to bark at me, its nose in the ear. Then Linda's voice says, "Rose, I think I better call the paramedics," and she runs upstairs, and suddenly the old lady looks at me and says, "Can I help you with something?" So I ask her if she noticed the vacant house, and she says, "No." So I ask her if she noticed the fluorescent lime green house, and she says, "No." So I ask her if she knows where she lives, and she says, "No." So I ask her if she likes it here, and she says, "No." And then she goes back to searching around. And Linda comes down with a bunch of paper towels wrapped around her hand and tells me Duke bit her finger and asks me if I'll take her to emergency. So I ask her to show me the finger, and there's a deep cut, deep enough to require stitches, only it's at least a few days old, there's no blood, and it seems to be healing. So I tell Linda I don't have my car. She tells me she's going to call the ambulance and asks me to watch Rose for her, and I tell her politely, no. Okay. You guys have any more of those magazines left? Here?
Why don't you cut that thing short? That thing from Ray.
Okay, this one is from Art Crimes, so thanks to Beth for getting this one out. I called you up. They said you couldn't come. They said you had a fever. I asked for you. They said you had a fever, 103 degrees. They were all quite concerned. You were so hot. 103 degrees. I heard you had a fever. I came over. I knocked on the door and they said you couldn't come. They said you had a fever, 103 degrees. I wanted to come up and they said you had a fever. They said you couldn't come, so I started to sweat. I knew you were hot. 103 degrees. I came up to your room. Your room smelled of fever. The air was wet with sweat. The air was so hot, 103 degrees. I knew you had a fever. The bed was wet with sweat. You were lying there in fever, 103 degrees. Your head was wet with sweat. I was feeling your forehead. I started to sweat. You were delirious in fever. Your skin was so hot, 103 degrees. I burned my hand on your forehead. You murmured my name. I rolled you onto your stomach. The bed was wet with sweat. I wanted to take your temperature. You were so hot. I said, they still love. They say you have a fever. You murmured my name. I was sweating when I put it in. I woke up with fever, 103 degrees. You were standing there. I murmured your name. My skin was so hot. You said I had a fever. The bed was wet with sweat. Okay, that was hot. That was a prelude. A prelude to, I'm going to read from my memoirs.
Right, you just started writing your memoirs?
Yeah, okay, I'm writing my memoirs. And these are the childhood years. Okay, so I'm going to tell you things that you probably don't want to know about me. The first thing you need to know about me is that I have a circumcised cock. When I was only 2 days old, the doctor carried me to the circ room, laid me spread eagle on my back on a chrome metal and formica surgical board molded in the shape of an infant's body, strapped down my legs with white cloth restraints, and pulled my diaper down. She swabbed my dick with yellowish-brown povidone iodide and then covered it with a sterile surgical drape. She lifted my dick so it stuck out through a little window in the cloth, clipped the edge of my foreskin to my trunk with a pair of hemostats, and used a small metal rod to unstick the skin from the glands of my penis. Securing my foreskin on two sides with small metal clamps, she lifted it up over the head of my cock and pinched it closed with a big silver clamp. Then she took out a knife and sliced off a piece of my skin. The next thing you need to know is that at the age of 3, I grew chickenpox spots on my dick. I had a 103-degree fever and stayed in bed watching cartoons. Spots appeared in crops across the fields of my body. My primary skin lesions were papules, which soon became vesicular. They were superficial and small and filled with a clear serum which became slightly purulent. Hard crusts formed on them when they ruptured. The scabs appeared first on my cherubic face, but erupted most profusely on my innocent trunk and my toddler's dick. I also became constipated at that time. My mother sat on the toilet seat next to the bathroom sink. laid me face down on her knees, and pulled down my pants. I remember staring at the floral patterns on the wallpaper, blue pansies on a pink field, while she inserted an enema tube into my ass and pumped the bowl. I felt very safe on my mommy's lap as the warm, soapy water slushed through my bowels. I held it in as long as I could, whimpering and sighing and staring at the wallflowers. After a while, Mom stood up and helped me sit on the toilet, and I spent several ecstatic minutes tightening and loosening my sphincter and laughing and crying and gasping and moaning and expelling murky rivers of shit and medicinal water into the toilet bowl. When I finally let it all loose, my mother patted me on the head and flushed. When I was 7 years old, my girlfriend gave me the measles. It was the year we made our first communion. Since I was the shortest boy in the whole second grade, and they arranged us according to size, I was given the terrifying task of being the first boy in the first communion line. I was the one who had to remember what turns to take in our procession through the church pews. I was the one who had to remember to say amen before sticking my tongue out at the priest for a wafer. At least I wasn't the only one who had to remember everything. Since we were segregated into two lines, boys in one line and girls in the other, my responsibilities of First Communion leadership were shared by the shortest girl. Kimmy Maraschino was the shortest girl in the whole second grade. That's why she was my girlfriend. I remember the day Kimmy Maraschino came up to me on the playground to tell me she was my girlfriend. Her little brother, Eric, was with her by the swing set. Eric was in the first grade and had a blonde, butch haircut. He was scratching himself and complaining about not feeling good. Kimmy said he was a baby because she felt itchy too and she wasn't crying. It turned out they both had the measles, and then I got it too. I had a fever. My upper respiratory passages were inflamed, and I had a blotchy, macular eruption of my skin. My eyes were red and sensitive to light. I had a headache. I suffered a debilitating lassitude. Spots began to appear on the second day, small reddish areas upon my buccal mucous membrane. Each spot had a bluish center. My skin erupted on the fourth day, first on my head and neck, and then spreading rapidly over the fields of my body, my legs and my dick being the last parts attacked. My primary lesions were macules, exceptionally slightly elevated, varying in size from 4 millimeters to 3 centimeters and roughly oval in outline, though not clearly defined. Their eruption became especially confluent upon my angelic face. I was laying naked in my bed, watching Flipper on TV and trying not to scratch. I felt very safe. My mother would come in once in a while to give me a drink of water and oil my skin. I felt hot and prickly and kept drifting in and out of sleep. I dreamt that Flipper was rescuing a boy from drowning, and then Flipper turned into Superman, and Superman turned into me. I was flying over the houses to the school playground in my red S and my red cape and my red skin spots, on my way to rescue Kimmy from some terrible unknown danger. When I got there, I saw that Eric was with her by the swing set, kind of like Jimmy Olsen with Lois Lane. I scooped them both up in my arms. I was cradling Kimmy in my left arm and Eric in my right arm, and they clung to me and pulled on my clothes and laughed and gasped and breathed on my neck, and we all flew through the air over the big field behind my house and into my bedroom window. We all took off our clothes and huddled together, safe and warm and naked, in my bed. I was the oldest of 7 children. My sisters, Cindy and Sandy, and I used to play with Richie and Michael Talbot, who lived across the street. We'd run up to their side door and sing out their names. Oh, Michael! Oh, Richie! And they'd come out carrying their tennis shoes, and the 5 of us would run next door to Maura Benway's house. Oh, Maura! Then Maura would come out, and we'd all look both ways and run back across the street to sing out Maureen Whitehead. Oh, Maureen! Then me and Maureen and Maura and Richie and Michael and Cindy and Sandy would run and skip barefoot across a series of driveways and tiny fields of freshly mowed grass, sometimes racing the cars going 15 miles per hour up the street to the John Birch family house. Now, Mrs. Birch wouldn't let Johnny and Mary Ann play with us when we were barefoot because it meant we were hippies. So we'd stop and put our shoes on. Oh, Johnny! Oh, Mary Ann! And Johnny and Mary Ann would come out, and Mr. Birch would come out and give us all pamphlets about the American way. Then we'd all go back inside, and we'd all put our shoes back on and run out the door and stuff the pamphlets into our shoes and race each other to the big field behind our houses to play baseball or kick the can. One summer, we built a fort we called Baby in a crabapple tree. One day, I made a ladder all the way to the top by nailing boards in the branch as I climbed. I was standing up there spying on John Birch when I fell out of the tree and shattered my elbow. It must have been a Sunday because my dad was home and drove me to the hospital. In addition to my pain, I had severely reduced hand function and had lost the ability to perform an almost infinite number of intricate tasks. 2 orthopedic surgeons operated on me, removing both the radiohumeral and ulnar humeral sections of my elbow and replacing them with a cast metal and high-density polyethylene prosthesis, which allowed pronation and supination in a near normal manner. My soft tissue envelope was preserved by the surgeons for utilization in the dissipation of stresses at my joint interface. Because when I lifted a weight, I put much more stress on my elbow than on my hand, they included a radial head component, which acted as a buttress to prevent the angular distortion of my forearm upon my arm, reducing these high stresses by approximately half. I must have looked sweet in my hospital bed, eating ice cream and Jell-O, bending my arm back and throwing a balled-up John Birch Society pamphlet at Flipper on the TV, newly equipped with a reasonably functioning elbow that had a high safety factor as far as loosening and use was concerned. When Johnny Birch and I, who were the oldest, were in the 5th grade, we all started playing Indian tag. I don't remember whose idea it was, but once we tried it, we played it almost every day. The rules were based on our rules for cowboys and Indians. There were 2 teams. The object was to gang up and capture somebody from the other team and drag them to your team's headquarters in the bushes, which we called safety. You couldn't be captured by the other team as long as you stayed in your own team's safety zone, but then you couldn't capture anyone else if you didn't leave it. And of course you wanted to kidnap somebody, because after you carried them kicking and screaming to your safety, they'd have to pull down their pants and show you their butt. Now, even though we always had 4 boys and 4 girls, we never played Indian tag boys against the girls. We always had mixed teams. I don't know about Cindy, Sandy, Richie, Michael, Maura, Maureen, Johnny, or Mary Ann, but I really didn't care if I got to see a boy's butt or a girl's butt. I just wanted to see anybody's butt. They all look kind of the same. In a few weeks, we became skillful in strategic maneuvers to capture opposing rear ends and graduated to contact humiliations, like spankings. Then one day, we decided to play kick the can instead. We never played Indian tag instead. Now, the summer after I started junior high school, I quit playing with the other kids and spent most of my time alone in my room. I thought I had a pretty cool setup. I had some blacklight posters of the Monkees and a black and white TV. I had a record player and 11 records. I had a desk with a built-in bookshelf for my World Book Encyclopedia set and a chrome metal and Formica table for my experiments. I mixed vinegar and baking soda in a plastic test tube and watched it fizz. I sliced the legs off grasshoppers and looked at them under a 3-power microscope. I kept tadpoles in a pail and watched them grow. I had a cooler in the corner filled with frogs. When they were big enough, I cut them open with a switchblade and picked out their organs with plastic pickup sticks. I had a mayonnaise jar filled with frog lungs. I spent my 12th birthday vivisecting 15 or 16 frogs. I tied them on their backs to my chrome metal and formica table with heavy string and sliced lines through their thin, slimy skins. I made a few snips with my round-tip safety scissors and peeled skin from their bellies like ripe bananas. One of the frogs kicked so hard it broke the string, so I just cut off its legs and peeled up from the groin. I scooped out the jelly surrounding its uterus with a popsicle stick. Its heart was still beating. I measured from the heart with a yellow plastic ruler, located the liver, speared it with a toothpick, and snip, snip, snip with my safety scissors. I was cutting into its stomach to look for undigested insects while my mother called me down for supper.
Frank, good night.
See ya, Jim.
Scrape out the uterus with a puncher.
I forgot to wash the blood off my hands, and my father sent me back upstairs. When I was in the bathroom, I took the opportunity to jerk off into the toilet. I sat on the seat like I was taking a shit and pushed down on my dick, swinging it around and listening for footsteps until semen came out and stuck to the sides of the bowl. When I finished, I wiped my dick with toilet paper and wiped the toilet bowl with a washcloth and flushed it twice to get rid of the evidence. Then I went back to the table and ate 2 hot dogs and a big helping of pork and beans. My aunt and uncle were over and everybody sang happy birthday. I blew out the candles on my cake and opened my presents. I got an aluminum baseball bat, a Neil Diamond record, a pair of long-pronged tweezers, a blunt-edged scalpel, and a tube of Clearasil. I should probably tell you that I had terrible acne. My primary lesions were comedones, or blackheads, plugs of dirt and fatty matter in my skin ducts. They developed into semi-globular, intensely red papules on my forehead, my temples, the maxillary portions of my cheeks and chin, my shoulders, and my back. My pimples were deep-seated, sometimes burrowing abscess cavities of considerable size into my forehead, my shoulders, and my chin. I had a mirror on the chrome metal and formica table in my room, and would put down my frog guts in the middle of a cut to press out some thick white pus from my face. That was the year of my first French kiss. Kathy Snitch, who lived 2 blocks away, asked me to come over and help her study for our biology test. I was hesitant at first. I wanted to get home to my experiments. But I was honored that somebody recognized my abilities. Kids didn't usually invite me to do things and seemed to get mad when I knew all the answers in science class. I wasn't very popular. So I went home with Kathy. Her mother gave us glasses of Pepsi, and we went down to the basement and spread our books out on a chrome metal and formica table. I was quizzing Kathy on the 2 types of intestines when she suddenly kissed me on the maxillary portion of my cheek. I got nervous and stuttered when I asked her about arteries. Then I resolved to kiss her back, right on the mouth. She said, "Aorta," and I said, "Correct," and smacked her with a half-second peck. She told me not to worry, that we were safe. Nobody'd come down. I didn't know what she meant. I still don't. She opened her mouth and put it over mine and started to lick my lips. I didn't know what I was supposed to do, so I just sat there and let her lick. Her tongue was warm and slimy and tickled my skin. I smiled like Flipper licked by the waves. I stared at a pimple on her forehead, and my chin, my shoulders, my back, and my dick were as stiff as a plastic test tube. By the time I got to high school, I figured out how to swap spit and squeeze tit. Sometimes I was even able to slide my hand inside a girl's pants and try to find her pussy. Most of the girls thought my brown hair and droopy eyelids were cute, and I had a different girlfriend every semester. I was doing college-level work with the science club after school. One day, a shy, blue-eyed sophomore named Tom Weaver joined the club, and we soon became best friends. Tom had some problems at home and spent a lot of time at my house. We'd go down to the basement and listen to Simon and Garfunkel records, and Tom would tell me about his problems. And I'd comfort him by rubbing his shoulders or ruffling his hair. In 10th grade, I had a crush on a big-breasted girl named Mary Ann Mayo. One day, I asked her to go roller skating, and she just started laughing and walked away. I was crushed. Later, Tom told me he heard Mary Ann saying that she wouldn't be caught dead roller skating with a boy who had to tilt his head back to see out from under his sagging eyelids. So I went home and told my parents about it, and we decided it was time I had surgery. I was sedated, and an ophthalmologist used a caliper to take accurate measurements, and then outlined incision lines on my eyelids with the surgical marker. I was injected with lidocaine, and after about 7 minutes, the surgeon cut into my skin just above my left eyelash margin, and then cut through the various layers of my eyelid, first with a knife, and then with a pair of scissors, following the line of my natural crease. The incision was deepened so that my levator muscle was exposed, and then the muscle itself was split and opened like the pages of a book, and a segment of it was trimmed away from the bottom. My muscle was then reattached to my tarsus, the part of my eyelid made of cartilage. The incision was cauterized with an electric needle to control the bleeding, and the wound itself was closed with catgut sutures. I remember the nurse apologizing to the surgeon when the catgut came loose from the eye of the needle, while the surgeon was threading it through my eyelid. Although my eyes were still black and blue, I felt well enough after 2 weeks to go with Tom Weaver to the woods to look for specimens. We were on our knees looking for grasshoppers when my left eye began to twitch. Tom pulled down gently on my cheek with his fingers and looked into my eye, searching for stray hairs or twigs or bugs. The tears in my eyes made his eyes look beautiful, like pale blue moons floating in Flipper's Bay. He said, "I don't see anything in your eye," and I said, "I see something in yours." He looked down and I kissed him on the eyelid. He took his hand off my face and put it on my shoulder. I stuck my hand under his shirt and started rubbing his chest. He laid down on his back on a blanket of dry leaves, and I pulled up his shirt and started sucking on his left tit. His eyes were closed. I pulled down his pants and rubbed and kissed his cock for a couple minutes. He turned over on his stomach. I unzipped my pants and my cock sprang out, and I massaged the white skin of his ass, squeezing his cheeks like rolls of Charmin and pulling them apart to expose his asshole. I tried to put my dick inside him, but I didn't know to use spit as a lubricant, and it wouldn't go in. I finally put it between his legs and sucked on his ear as he tightened his thigh muscles. Then we heard little kids on the path nearby. Although we didn't think they could see us in the bushes, we no longer felt safe. So we pulled up our pants and picked up our specimen jars. I had leaves and twigs and bugs in my underwear, but my eyes felt fine. I'm not going to go into my adult sex life. So thank you all for coming. And we're done.
It's over.
Do you feel safe now?
To be nothing happening
Right, you get that too.
Yeah.